Welcome to This Explainer. Listen, we need to talk about a modern American tragedy. And the crazy part is, it's hiding right in plain sight. It's happening every single second, all across the country. Every second, someone, somewhere, swipes a credit card. It's this quick, clean, almost automatic motion, right? And in that exact moment, whether they're standing under the bright, sterile lights of a grocery store checkout aisle or just staring at the glow of their smartphone in a dark apartment, they genuinely think they're buying freedom. They think they're buying a little breathing room, a spark of joy, or just buying some time. But the heavy reality? With every seemingly innocent swipe, so many are slowly, unknowingly, buying themselves right into financial slavery instead.
Buying freedom or financial slavery? That right there is the core tension we're breaking down today. And we are not just talking about a handful of isolated cases of bad money management. No way. We're talking about millions of American families currently trapped in a deeply emotional, crushing cycle of debt. The system completely presents itself as a lifeline, a tool for financial freedom to get the life you want right now. But we really have to pause and ask ourselves, are we actually the ones in control here? Or are we quietly being locked into a cage?
So, let's get into Section 1, the modern survival mechanism, or when paychecks aren't enough. There is this pervasive, honestly unfair myth out there that credit card debt is just the result of irresponsibility, that it only happens to people who are lazy or totally reckless with their cash. But the data paints a much more empathetic and, frankly, much harsher picture. This whole wave of debt is born from an unforgiving economic reality. Modern life has literally just become incredibly expensive. Look at the absolute basics. Groceries, rent, gas prices, medical bills. You put the exact same items in your grocery cart today that you did maybe 3 years ago, and the total at the register is just staggering. The gap between a standard, hardworking paycheck and the raw cost of basic human needs is widening fast. And when your paycheck literally doesn't cover the cost of staying alive, what else can you do? Everyday people are forced to turn to plastic just to survive the week.
But how does just trying to survive turn into a full-blown, keep-you-up-at-night crisis? Well, it happens step by step. At first, it feels completely harmless. Step 1, a swipe for takeout after an absolutely exhausting day at work. Step 2, a swipe for some necessary clothes for the kids because they're growing fast. Step 3, a swipe for a sudden emergency. Maybe the car breaks down and you need it fixed just so you can get to your job. Every single one of these isolated purchases feels entirely justified. It's just a piece of plastic bridging the gap, right? But these quiet little transactions slowly snowball. Before a family even realizes what hit them, that harmless balance becomes thousands of dollars of looming debt.
Now, we naturally beat ourselves up over the spending, but actually scratch that. The spending itself isn't the ultimate villain of this story. The real trap is the brutal, unforgiving nature of interest. Most people honestly do not realize how mathematically devastating credit card interest really is. The initial spending, that's just the bait. The interest is the steel trap snapping shut. It's this silent, invisible force that takes a temporary cash shortfall and morphs it into a permanent state of intense financial anxiety.
Which brings us to Section 2, the invisible interest trap. Working harder, but feeling poorer.
You see, once you fall into that debt cycle, the rules of the game change entirely. It completely stops being about what you bought, and it becomes all about the mathematical formula that is specifically designed to keep you paying. When we look at the mechanics of this trap, the math is genuinely terrifying. Greater than 20%. Let that sink in. That is the annual interest rate on many credit cards today. Every single year, it means the cost of carrying that debt is so astronomical that even when stressed families do exactly what they're told, making the required minimum payments every single month without fail, the actual principal debt barely moves. You are literally pouring water into a bucket with a massive hole in the bottom.
And the emotional and physical toll of this math? It's devastating. On one hand, you have the worker's reality. People are hustling. They're working harder, taking on extra shifts, maybe even earning more money on paper now than they ever have in their lives. But the financial results paints a totally grim picture. They are feeling poorer and saving less. The invisible hand of compound interest just snatches away every extra dollar they earn. It creates this incredibly dangerous cycle. As the debt stagnates, financial anxiety quietly takes over the household. Stress skyrockets, relationships get strained, and families are left sitting at the kitchen table late at night, trying to figure out impossible math. Just look at this reality. Banks continue making billions from interest payments. That is the harsh, unvarnished truth about the system. Credit card companies do not actually want you to fully escape your debt. I mean, think about it. If you pay off your card, they lose a revenue stream. The whole system, with its low minimum payments and sky-high rates, is intricately designed to profit off of this continuous, agonizing struggle. They're pulling in billions while everyday families are literally losing sleep.
In this trap builds silently across an entire lifetime. Walk through this chilling timeline with me. Day 1. You buy a $500 item, a totally necessary expense, like fixing a broken refrigerator so your food doesn't spoil. Well, years later, because of that high interest and the way minimum payments are structured, you are still stuck making payments on that same fridge. Decades later, you finally paid it off, but guess what? You ended up paying double, maybe even triple the original cost of that item. Minimum payments are explicitly designed to string you along for years, sometimes decades. That single swipe can haunt a family's finances for a generation.
Moving on to Section 3, the social media mirage, weaponizing FOMO.
Okay, so we have this baseline of families already struggling to afford basic necessities, turning to cards just to survive. But then the digital world comes in and just pours gasoline on this financial fire. Every single day, we are bombarded with this luxury illusion online. You open an app and it's fancy cars, pristine designer clothes, wildly expensive vacations. It's a highly curated, ultra-filtered atmosphere that completely hides the stressful financial reality behind the camera. But this constant exposure, it creates intense, totally overwhelming pressure. People feel forced to spend money they do not actually have, just to look successful to an audience of total strangers. It's the fear of missing out, completely weaponized, convincing us that if we don't swipe for that designer aesthetic, we're somehow falling behind in life.
Let's hit our final section, redefining true wealth, stripping away the fake luxury.
So, if social media is lying to us, what should our actual goal be? How do we escape the crushing stress of debt and actually find a peaceful financial life? Well, it really comes down to a choice. On one side, we have looking rich. This is the hollow illusion. It means chasing online aesthetics, funding an unaffordable lifestyle, and as a result, living paycheck to paycheck in a constant low-level state of panic. On the other side is real wealth. And real wealth is not about flashing logos. Real wealth is freedom. It's freedom from debt. It's freedom from the crushing weight of financial stress. It is true financial peace, where your paycheck actually belongs to you and not to some bank on Wall Street.
The truth here is simple, even if it is really difficult to face. Credit cards are not inherently dangerous just because they exist. At the end of the day, they're just a financial tool. They become dangerous when they're used to fund lifestyles we cannot truly afford, or when we are backed into a corner and forced to use them to mask the rising costs of survival without a clear exit plan. Sadly, millions of Americans are learning this profound lesson entirely too late, long after the interest has already rewritten their financial futures.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly important question to reflect on. As you look at your own wallet, at your own spending habits, and the real emotional reality of your finances, are you buying the life you want, or are you buying the debt you can't escape? Really think about that the next time you prepare for a swipe. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this empowers you to take a closer, harder look at the true cost of modern convenience.